Well, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is moving ahead with a sprawling antitrust probe of Microsoft that was open in the waning days of the Biden administration. It signals that Donald Trump's new FTC chair, Andrew Ferguson, is going to prioritize scrutiny of tech giants. With us here in the studio is Bloomberg Intelligence antitrust litigation and policy analyst, Justin Tarasi. Justin, was there a question as to whether or not the Trump administration would continue with some of these inquiries?
Hey, guys. So really, I think this is very interesting here. It's kind of the first signs we're seeing of what this new FTC under the leadership of Andrew Ferguson is really going to do. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about, will there be this forceful activity against big tech? Will there not be? And it seems like not really surprising. I think this is the first indicia we're seeing that crusade, if you will, against big tech might be continuing in some ways, right? So not really surprising. I think with the change in administrations, there's not always an end to investigations that have already started. So from that aspect, I think we're probably going to see more of the same here in regards to how the FTC is approaching big tech in the near term.
Is this more J.D. Vance at work? Like, I just think about his support of Lena Khan, right? Understanding of big technology. Like, you do wonder about the different members of the Trump administration who is maybe catching the president's ear on certain things.
Yeah, that's also a good question. And again, I think we've been looking at trying to read these tea leaves, the first kind of bits of antitrust activity coming out of the new administration to see what they're going to do here. I don't know that it's necessarily J.D. Vance, but I think it is interesting to see that we're seeing this push continue with regard to big tech. I'll note, though, really interesting how last Friday, the DOJ filed its search remedies in the Google antitrust case, and there they suggested that the government would drop its at least in that action, the government would not seek Google to sell off its investment in Anthropic, right? So this is kind of a twist on that when you're looking at OpenAI now,
right,
under the Microsoft lens at FTC.
Okay, so it raises the question about potential appearance of conflicts of interest with first buddy, I think is how some people refer to Elon Musk, first buddy of the president.
First friend.
As a very close advisor to the president.
That's a nice way to put it, Tim. Yeah, definitely. We could talk about that all day for so many different ways too, right? It's really interesting, and that brings me to the private litigation that's also going on right now between Elon Musk and Sam Altman and OpenAI. There's just so many different fronts that this is happening on right now. But really, to your point, there's a lack of consistency too, from agency to agency to presidential best friend, right? So how this rolls out, I think it's still a little bit of a scratching of the head. And, you have these same tech execs showing up and donating to the inauguration fund back in January. So what is it, and how does this proceed from here? It's really a tough question.
I gave $1 million and schlepped to Washington, D.C., and this is what I get?
Right.
What are you saying? What are you saying,
bad
guys?
ROI, it sounds like, definitely.
Just 30, 40 seconds. I mean, what's the issue of this case?
Right. So this is really broad here with the investigation of the FTC. It might not materialize into an actual case at all.
So they're just looking at things.
They're looking at AI. They're looking at cloud computing. They're looking basically at every last bit of Microsoft's business. But whether or not this actually develops into a lawsuit, we're looking at a good year or more down the road here, I think, before we see any fruits from the investigation that's taking place.
How often does the FTC do something that they just kind of poke around, look at things, ask questions of?
That's a great guess, because a lot of times this all happens behind closed doors, and we don't even hear about it. So really, this is just something that I think is leaked out, and that's what brings us to where we are today.
And I will say shares of Microsoft still up about 0.8%. They've been bouncing around here, maybe off their best levels of the session, but just by a little bit. So it's not like investors are running for the exit door.
Yeah, I think we've got a way to go before we see anything really materializing on this one.
All right, Justin, thank you so much. Justin Tarasi, he is Bloomberg Intelligence antitrust litigation and policy analyst, joining us right here on Bloomberg. We're counting down to the close, getting close. This is Bloomberg.